So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this right. Maybe that'll focus, but that is my screen time for today. And I'm sat at around 6 minutes and it's 1:20 p.m. and this is something that I didn't really think was possible, right? This is a pretty crazy number for a lot of people, I can imagine. And so what I wanted to do today was kind of share some ideas that help me get to that place. And it's not going to be like my other videos necessarily, and there's not going to be cuts and fast jumps, and it might not look very pretty. But I think this video is going to offer you some real value and really help you kind of get to this level. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to ask you was this sort of question of, what if tomorrow this bad habit went away? And stay with me here, right? Because this is kind of the point of this video is what if tomorrow you never scrolled again and this bad habit left you? Or maybe you're struggling with something else. Maybe it's watching internet porn or something like this. And what if that habit completely left you tomorrow? What changes? What materially changes? If tomorrow you wake up and you never scroll again, is your life really that much different? And this is kind of what I'm trying to drill home, is that I think a lot of us have got into this state of mind, especially with self-improvement, that we get very frustrated with ourselves and we look at these things as problems. And we look at our screen time and we say, look, today I spent 3 hours a day scrolling. And we see that as the problem. But in reality, I think it is something deeper. I think what that is actually a symptom of a deep-rooted cause of these issues that you have. And what we really need to do, the way that you beat these kind of addictions, you break these bad habits, isn't by breaking the bad habit, but it's by going further in and looking at that root cause. And I think for a lot of us, the root cause is fairly similar, and it's a general dissatisfaction with life. This is the problem that you come to. And I think I've tried to kind of boil it down into 4 steps here. And the 4 kind of root causes of a lot of these issues that we have. And so what they are is kind of boredom. Boredom with life, boredom in the moment, but anyway, boredom, unhappiness, lack of friction, and identity. And we're going to kind of cover these one by one. But I think once you get a grasp of these 4 factors in your life, you can get to a place where these things aren't really problematic anymore. So we can start off with talking about boredom. And I don't necessarily mean what you think I mean here. I'm not talking specifically about being bored in a particular moment and so you pull out your phone and you scroll. I mean, that is one of the issues and we're going to cover that a bit later. But what I mean now is a general boredom with your life holistically. And essentially I think that comes down to comparison. I think that comes down to the fact that what a lot of us do, especially these days, is we look at social media and we watch these videos and we watch these perfect days and daily routines and we compare our own lives to them. And when we see this kind of dissatisfaction, we believe that our own lives are boring. And I have here a little quote from Seneca, The Letters from a Stoic. Go and read it, it's a fantastic book. But it says, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And this is kind of the idea that I'm trying to sort of drive home here. It's not necessarily about what you want your life to be, but it's about finding appreciation in the life that you currently have. So maybe if you have watched my videos for a while, you'll have noticed a kind of common theme. And this is something that I kind of struggle with videography, but a lot of my videos, right, are basically the same thing. They're me waking up in the morning, turning off an alarm, going and brushing my teeth and taking a shower, maybe doing something else in my day, eating some food. But there is kind of a conscious reason behind this, right? The reason why these videos are all exactly the same is because I think that is an accurate representation of life. And in many ways an accurate representation of a good life. Because a good life, a life well lived, doesn't need to be something that's spectacular. It doesn't need to be something that changes every day and you have a lot of these crazy things that are happening. A good life comes from being very appreciative of kind of simplicity. And I think appreciation is the important word here and what I really want you to take away from this. But it's about appreciation. It's about noticing the things in your life that are actually positive and kind of focusing in on those things. Because there's a weird little phenomenon that happens, right? And it's interesting, but you can't really be happy even if you're living a great life, unless you properly stop and appreciate the fact that you're doing that. You can be doing all these great habits, and not to like blow my own trumpet or anything, but there have been many days where I've done all these great habits, and I've meditated and took a cold shower and exercised and journaled and read for a few hours, done some work, but I still don't feel great at the end of that day because I never actually stopped for a second and appreciated those moments. So I think this is one important thing, is you need to stop being dissatisfied with your life, right? You need to build a deep appreciation for the life that you live, however kind of simple it is. And I've written here, the way you think about life, right, isn't necessarily about what you want your life to be, but it's about being happy with what your life realistically will be. And this isn't necessarily about settling for less or being perfectly content with a very boring and simple life, but it's about the very realistic proposition, which is that your life might not be very interesting. Your life might be shit, right? And there's no point in comparing it to these great not philosophers, but celebrities and influencers who have this fantastic life. It's about well and truly accepting the fact that your life is mundane, and it will be, and it's about coming to peace with that. So then I guess the next idea is kind of once you've done that, once you've reached the point where you're happy with your life, you're calm, you're stable, you're in a place where you appreciate the little things, where you're perfectly content with exactly what you have. And I mean, this is not a trivial step, this takes a while to do, but then you can start instilling happiness. And I think this comes from adding certain things in, right? And there's this ancient Greek philosophy and this philosophical idea in Greek called thumos. And it talks about fire. And it's a philosophy of fire, right? And it says that every person has this flame deep in their stomach. And certain things fuel that fire and certain things extinguish it. And so happiness, to me, a lot of it is about what we spoke about before, about appreciation, about not desiring things external to you. But at the same time, it's about fueling this inner fire and finding the specific things that you really enjoy doing and adding those into your life. So random, but things like good food, things like being with loved ones, things like being inside of communities, join the School of Life, by the way, link in the description, things like reading great books, things like meditating for a certain period of time. And we're going to get onto how you start building these proper habits more a bit later, but this is the important thing now. It's kind of a two-pronged attack that you need to approach your life with, where on the one hand you appreciate your baseline, and then on the other hand you try and add in these activities that give you this kind of flame. And that way you can really start to uplift your life holistically. And so happiness is the next bit, this idea of thumos and fire. And I think this lends itself very naturally to the third point. And the third point is this idea of lack of friction. And this is an interesting one, right? And it's one we speak about a bit in the School of Life, our group. And it's this idea that these days we have a lot of free time, right? And this is often seen as a great thing, but progressively, as a society, we have more and more free time. Tell someone 50 years ago that you scrolled for 5 hours a day, and you know what they'd say to you? They'd say, how do you even have 5 hours free, right? Because what we've done is we've shaped our lives in these ways, yes, due to technology, but just due to the way that we shape our lives in general, into a life that's geared around convenience. A life that is, in many ways, frictionless is the word that I like to use here. Instead of studying for long hours, we use ChatGPT now to write our essays. Instead of cooking food, we order stuff on Uber Eats. Instead of going out and having sex with people, we watch internet porn. Our life is geared around convenience. And so it gives us all this kind of free time. And it's because of this free time, I think, that we have so much time where we sit there and we're bored and we have nothing to do, and so we scroll, or we do this and we do that. And it's kind of ironic because I think a lot of us are in this mindset that we see free time as freedom, but in reality, for most of us, our free time is actually the time that we spend doing the things that we hate the most about ourselves. And so I think one very important thing we can do is we can start to add friction back into our lives. And what do I kind of mean by this? But take a game like Minecraft, right? And a lot of us love that game, and I love that game, and I still play that game. And we love it, and I think the main reason why we play that game so much and it gives us the feeling that it does is because it's a game full of friction. You need to build certain things, you need to harvest your crops, you need to feed your animals, you need to go mining and keep your supplies up. You need to do a lot of things. And this idea of need is a very important thing. And I think something that we're missing in this day and age where everything is kind of done for us. So this is one thing that we need to start kind of developing in our lives, is how do we add in a bit more friction? How do we return to a life that we don't have so much free time to just do this and that, where we have these genuine things that we kind of need to do every day? And we're going to go on to that in the next section too, but I think this is an important thing. So just some very basic habits that you can start to do, but it's things like, like cooking your own food like we're talking about, properly spending the actual amount of time to study, not using ChatGPT, but just generally it comes down to kind of realigning our views of convenience, realigning this view of technology to one which isn't necessarily that we want technology to be doing everything for us, but more towards a life where we're kind of doing a lot of this stuff ourselves, as humans should be. And I think when you reintroduce that friction, you lose a lot of that time that you'd otherwise spend scrolling or doing this and that. And so what we're doing here is we're coming at this problem, right, from a number of different factors. And so far that's what we've done. We've spoken about this dissatisfaction with life. We've spoken about these ideas of becoming happy with less. We've spoken about how you add in these little nuggets of happiness, this thumos. Now we've spoken about how you add this friction back into your life, these jobs that you need to do, this kind of sense of satisfaction and fulfillment that gives you. And then finally I think it comes down to a question of identity. Because think about this, right? In 20 years' time, what kind of person do you want to be? And you don't want to be a person that's scrolling, and you don't want to be a person that's watching internet porn, and you don't want to be a person that's doing this or doing that. But are you going to be tracking these habits forever? Am I going to be sat there in 20 years' time ticking off things on a habit tracker? Am I going to be sat there in 20 years' time adding another day to my nofap streak? Am I going to be sat there in 20 years' time actively every single day trying to implement a rule that I don't use social media on my phone? No. The answer is no. The problem that we have at the moment with habit formation is we go at it in a way where even if we were to be successful, it is not an ideal way to be living. Even if you get an 180-day nofap streak, a 360-day nofap streak, it's not an ideal way to be living. You've cut out this kind of issue that you're calling an issue, but at the same time, the amount of effort you've expended in trying to achieve that goal, it's as much effort as you spent actually like doing the bad habit in the first place. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but you can't be living a life where for the rest of your foreseeable future you're trying to actively implement these habits. You're trying to actively do this and that. Think about a lot of the habits that you have already, right? You have so many habits that you don't need to think about. What is your streak for brushing your teeth? What is your streak for eating cereal in the morning, right? You have these habits, and that is the place where we want to be kind of forming these habits. And I think that comes down to identity. And identity is a big part of breaking these bad habits, of becoming a person who doesn't scroll, but also how we implement good habits. And identity, in a way, it goes back to this idea of friction. Think about this. A bee makes honey every day, right? Is that a habit it has? No. It's just something that it needs to do. And in many ways, that's what you need to get to as well. You can't want to implement a good habit, right? You need to be forced to implement that good habit. And in many ways, that comes down to restructuring your life. So you want the very simple answer, and we're going to go back to the phone now, but you want the extremely simple answer of how I use this phone less. Well, I don't have Instagram downloaded. I don't even have the App Store downloaded. I don't have Google Chrome downloaded. I've disabled all of those apps. The reason why I don't use this phone particularly much is because there is literally nothing for me to do on this phone. If I want to scroll Instagram, I pull out my laptop and I go and check it on there. If I want to, I don't know, use some other form of social media, if I want to watch YouTube or TV, I go and do that at a cinema or I put it on the TV. The reason why I don't use this is because in many ways I don't have to. And this is how you form a habit. You gear your life and you kind of design your life in a way that makes that habit a necessity. And because of this, other habits follow. Because there is literally nothing to do on my phone, I find myself sitting there with very little to do and thinking. What is that? It's meditation. So I'm forced into this habit of meditation. I see a book next to me. Here it is, Letters from a Stoic. And what am I forced to do? Well, I'm forced to read, because if I don't, what am I doing? I'm just sitting there bored. So you see how you need to kind of develop a life and develop an environment in which these good habits that you're trying to do become forced actions rather than becoming things that you want to try and implement. They need to go from these ephemeral ideas of I want to do this, I want to do that, to stuff that you actually need to do, right? You want to walk more? Well, you shouldn't have a car. You want to use your phone, you want to use Instagram less. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, delete your Instagram account. You need to be developing your life in a way that actually supports the goals that you have, because you can't be fighting against your life for the rest of eternity. You need to design your life in a way that uplifts the actual goals and habits that you're trying to implement. I don't know if I can make more sense, but I hope you kind of understand what I mean by that. So create this kind of optimal space. And I think this is the last point and the most important point is it's about restructuring this environment. So having nice music playing, being surrounded by plants, or over here I've got a little statue of a Buddha that reminds me to meditate. It's just about having these visual cues and reminders inside of your environment that trigger action. I have a guitar next to me. I have clocks, an alarm clock, so I don't need to check my phone. I have a massive bookcase over there that whenever I feel bored is sitting right in front of me and it inspires me to read. It's about crafting an environment into a way that good habits become your identity, not because you want to do them, but because they are what you do. And bad habits are removed from your identity in a very similar fashion because you can't do them anymore. And this is where you need to get to. That is the only solution. You can talk about willpower and you can do this and that, but at the end of the day, there's no point in fighting these things for the rest of your life. And I'm sorry, my throat has gone a bit at the end there, but this is the point of the video. And like I say, if you want to chat more, come and join the School of Life. It's our community. We do a book club in there if you want to read more. We do group calls, we do live lectures. It's just a great place to be. You're surrounded by people who are on this kind of self-improvement grind, who inspire you to be better in your own way. So come and chat to us on there. But other than that, yeah, manifest excellence. I'm proud of you. I know that was a bit more of a chilled out video, but thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever. And enjoy the rest of your day.